Hello, this is your instructor, Joe Peralto, and I want to work through one of these assignments, Excel assignments in Chapter 4, Inventory Costing and Analysis. The assignment I want to work on is on page 121, Apply Your Skills, and this is Ea4-A1. Let's see if we can get through this in, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. In this exercise, you will compile summary data based on an inventory listing for educational endeavors. Then you will determine the inventory balance for a product category using 3 methods. Last, you will create a pivot table and a pivot chart. So, and again, this is on page 121. Ea4-A1. Step 1, open Ea4-A1-inventory from your Chapter 4 folder and save it as the file name with your name. And so I have the file here on my screen, and I'm going to do a save as. And I'm going to use instructor for my name. And as you can see, this is actually the 3rd assignment in Chapter 4, so you should be at least a little familiar with what you see on the screen. We have 2 tabs, inventory listing, which is what's the current tab, and the second tab is titled construction paper. This assignment is very similar to the first 2, R1 and R2. So let's see if we can get through this in 10 or 15 minutes. Let's see. Use a function to display the total number of product categories in cell B2. And so just as we did in the first 2 assignments, we positioned the cursor on cell B2, and we can type equals COU and select the function count A, and highlight our range A5 to A75. I'm sorry, that's A5 to A62, and hit enter, and that gives us a total category count of 58. In step 3, it says to populate the cells as described for the construction paper product category. In cell J5, number of years for which an inventory balance is displayed. So in J5, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. In K5, average inventory balance for the 5 years shown. And so for the average, we need to go to formulas, function library, and insert function, and click the drop down arrow for or select a category. Choose statistical and then average. Then click OK. Then we highlight the range E5 to I5 and click OK. And average inventory balance, showing as 10,535. Let's see, in cell L5, maximum inventory balance for the 5 years shown. So again, we go to formulas, function library, insert function, and we want to find max. And highlight the range K. I'm sorry, highlight the range okay, and then in M5, minimum inventory balance for the 5 years shown. So again, we go to formulas, function library, insert function. We want to search for min. And we want to highlight the same range. And why is that giving us that defaulted to max? I think I might have pressed the wrong button there. Let's try that again. Insert function. We want to find min. And highlight our range. Okay, so now we have the minimum inventory balance there in M5. And there is a hint. It says make sure the formula in cell J5 will update properly if any currently blank cells are later filled in. And so what is our formula in J5? Number of years for which an inventory balance is displayed. I have a whole number in there, and I believe we need a formula. So let's see what that formula is. We need to use equals count open paren, and highlight the range, and close the paren and press enter. And so now we do have a formula here, count E5 to I5, and currently only 4 out of the 5 cells have a value, so number of years is showing as 4. So once this 5th year is filled in with a value, the number of years should change to 5. Okay, good hint. Okay, number 4, copy the formulas in the range J5 to M5 and paste them such that the calculations will be performed for all product categories. And so I believe we need to move that down to the bottom and let it fill in. Okay. Enter formulas in the range E63 to I63 to add the inventory balances, and so I believe that would be the auto sum formula. And we should be okay there. Okay. And that's the end of the first part of problem A1. Now for the second part of the problem, it says use inventory costing methods. So we need to switch to the construction tab. And just as we did for R1 and R2, we need to enter the functions and formulas for LIFO inventory, FIFO inventory, and weighted average inventory. And so I don't have these memorized, so I'm going to pause the video and go back to the R2 problem and follow those instructions to input the same information here for LIFO, FIFO, and weighted average in problem A1. So we'll be back once that is completed. Okay, so what I've done here is put in these formulas by following the detailed instructions in problem R2. Takes a little while, but that's probably a good way to do it. Actually, the way you would use this sort of Excel tool would be to set up a template which you would save and use on a recurring basis to do your inventory analysis, and so you wouldn't have to recreate it from scratch every time you did it. Rather, you would start with a template with the basic information already there, and then you would add the data. For instance, the data would be like our inventory listing shown on tab 1. So what we're doing in the second tab, construction paper, is I'm not sure how that happened, but that description needs to be typed in. So we're looking on tab 2, construction paper, we're looking only at this product category across the board. So conceivably you could do this sort of analysis for any or all of the inventory items in the inventory listing. I hope that makes sense. So here we go. Our basic inventory information is given. Our beginning inventory, 490 units at a cost per unit of 14, and extended, that cost is 68.60, so 490 times 14. Then we had 4 purchases of units, varying numbers of units, and notice also the cost per unit has varied over this time frame. So our beginning inventory, our cost was 14 a unit, and by the time we made our 4th purchase, our cost per unit was 19. So unit cost has gone up over this period of time. And then again, the total columns are basically the units times the cost per unit for each of these purchases. So our total units for construction paper is 1447, and our total cost is 23,970. Now, if we were to apply manual calculations to get our LIFO, FIFO, and weighted inventory, it would take more time than simply using these formulas. Of course, the formulas need to be developed as you progress through setting up a template like this. But and so initially it's going to be a certain amount of time invested to get your template set up with the formulas needed to get the values that you want to look at. In this case, for construction paper, based on this information given over a period of time, this might be a month, probably a year, and with the ending inventory as given, 571 units, what we want to do is cost our ending inventory at each of 3 at 3 different amounts, one for LIFO inventory costing, one for FIFO inventory costing, and one for weighted average. Now, if we were to do this manually, and I mean we could do this with pencil and paper, but when I say manually, I mean using an Excel spreadsheet and basically spreading the data out and showing it with more calculations. We should be able to arrive at the same values as shown here using each of these three formulas developed in the text. So what I'll do is pause the video, and we're already well past 15 minutes. This is taking a lot longer than I hoped it would, but I'm going to pause the video and fill in that information, those quote-unquote manual calculations, and show them in this section of this worksheet here. And so here we go. Just to kind of briefly explain each of these three inventory costing assumptions or methods. With LIFO, we assume that the last inventory purchased or the latest inventory purchased is the first sold. So our unsold inventory, our ending inventory, is going to be at the top, or the earliest inventory, and moving forward from there. So of the 571 in ending inventory, 490 is from our beginning inventory at a unit cost of $14, and to make up the difference of 81 units, we take that out of our first purchase, which was at $15 a unit. We extend these two across and add down, and that's our 8075. First in, first out is the opposite of LIFO. First purchased, assumed, first sold. So our unsold or ending inventory is at the bottom from our latest purchase, moving back up. So of the 571 in ending inventory, 505 is from our last purchase at $19, and the difference of 66 is coming out of our third purchase, which was 85 units at $18. So the 66 is costed at $18. These two are extended across and added down to get our 10,783. And for weighted average, it's a little bit easier. When we're calculating inventory using weighted average, the weighted average assumption or method, we get the weighted average unit cost, and to get that, we take the total cost and divide it by the total units. So total cost of $23,970 divided by total units of 1447 gives us a weighted average cost of $17. Now what we want to do, and what Excel does, even though it's showing a value of 17, because we have set the format at 0 decimal places. But what Excel is doing is floating that decimal infinitely, and we need to do that in our calculation so that we can eliminate rounding differences and get as accurate a value here as possible. So we have an average cost of $17. We multiply it by the units in the ending inventory to get our weighted average ending inventory cost of $94.59, which again is that amount. Okay, so we're quite a bit over budget time-wise in terms of trying to work through this problem, but I think taking the extra time hopefully helps. And this is pretty detailed work, so you can't just zip through it. Even after getting through the first two, R1 and R2, which include very detailed instructions. In A1 and A2, it's essentially the same type of work that we're doing, but the the instructions in the problem are less detailed, and so more of it falls on the student to perform the tasks that are being asked for in the problem. So going back to our problem, we're in the second part of the problem on step 13. Enter a formula in the appropriate location on the inventory listing tab. So we need to go back to the inventory listing tab, and we need to display the 5th year LIFO inventory balance for construction paper. And so again, if we go back to the construction paper tab, our LIFO inventory balance for year 5 is this amount that we calculated, 8075. And so if we go back to the inventory listing, we want to show that amount here. And I think probably the easiest way to do that is to just use the equal sign and then go to construction paper and highlight that cell and press enter. And that'll bring that value into the inventory listing tab, into that cell. And of course our formula is equals construction paper tab cell B17. So all we're doing is we're calling that amount from onto this tab from another tab. Okay, and then step 14, apply the 3 symbols uncircled icon set, red, white, green color scale to the range K5 to K62. And so I had to refresh my memory on that one. And referring back to the similar instruction for problem R2, we need to highlight that range, which would be K5 to K62. K5 down to the bottom, K62, and then choose Home Styles, Home, Styles, Conditional Formatting, and we want to use 3 symbols icon set. 3 symbols icon set. I think that's this one. 3 symbols uncircled icon set. 3 symbols uncircled. Yeah, there it is right there. Putting the cursor on it, we can see that it's 3 symbols uncircled. And red, white, green color scale. Color scale. Red, white, green. Red, white, green color scale. There we go. That's pretty colorful. And I think that does it for section 2 of that problem. Okay, here we are with the completed pivot table and pivot chart. I paused the recording and worked through this on my own. It took a while. I'm not sure that it's perfect, but I think it's pretty much what it should look like. It does take a little bit of trial and error and playing around with it. It's difficult if you don't have an answer key to follow. That would at least give you an idea as to what it should look like. But I'll definitely be flexible in the way I grade these assignments. So anyway, I think that's it for now. It's just over 31 minutes into this, with quite a few pauses to get some work done while it's stopped. I think that saves some time. So I'll try to get this published and out to everyone, and hopefully it'll provide you with some help. All right, thanks a lot, and talk to you again soon. Aloha.